guys, welcome to the Badaboom podcast. This is Chris.
And this is Troy.
So big episode. We started this podcast, our first episode, with a Young Justice episode, and we've had several since. But this is probably the biggest one we're going to have. We're going to be talking about the end of season 4, which was epic.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Man, so if you haven't seen Young Justice season 4, go watch it. If you want to get an idea of what it's about before you watch it, keep listening. But this is just your generic spoiler we're going to be throwing up there. And I know I saw some leaks before the final episode kind of happened, and you told me, don't ruin this for me, like you ruined the Green Lantern stuff in this season for me. Yeah. But the previous episode before the finale, we all thought Nightwing was dead for a bit. So that's the one thing I spoiled for you.
Yeah. Well, like for me, when I watched the, the penultimate episode, when the heartbeat thing happened, I was like, oh, he's like definitely slowing his heartbeat. And then, as good writers do, they kind of like throw you off, with his head actually bleeding. And I was like, oh shit, like he's dead. And I was like, why is everyone dead?
Yeah.
I can't take it anymore. But, beside that, it opens like it's classic Young Justice in a sense that the bad guys seem to have the good guys on the ropes, and the heroes are able to come together with a plan and really deceive the bad guys, make them feel like they have the upper hand. And it was like, actually, we were like 5 steps ahead of you.
And even if they're not 5 steps ahead of them, it's like, we're just a little bit enough ahead of you to where you're like, okay, we gotcha.
Yeah. So not only is Nightwing revealed to be alive, I didn't think the team that was in, Bioship was dead, but it seems like they were also playing dead. And Superman was playing along in terms of getting himself captured. And then Rocket is alive. I thought Rocket would be a little like, Wally, where you're just like, oh my God, like they're lost in, her in a boom tube.
Yeah.
Wally somewhere in the Speed Force, hopefully.
Unknown territory.
But it was cool because it felt like these last few episodes, this last, arc that focused on, Nightwing, which, it focuses more on him. The first episode, the rest is really just Young Justice, the team. But it felt like, that moment, if you remember when Calderon was infiltrating the light, him being Black Mana's son, like it just was cool. It reminded me of that. And it's just such a good show because yes, the good guys win for now, but it's just going to get worse like it always does. And this time, the tease, it's not something cool like, oh, a Legionnaire's ring. It's like scary. It's like, hey, Darkseid has some allies and
some big ones.
And, they're teasing really big possible stories. The Green Lanterns were obviously a big part of this season. So was the New Gods. So it definitely laid the foundation for the next season to go bigger. They ended the season so strong. At one point, it almost felt directionless, but kind of once they started to hone in on, Lor-Zod's story and the Zod family, the Phantom Zone, and get back to Connor, it all seemed to click and everything seemed to make sense. And I'm excited to rewatch it and connect those dots.
Well, and to recap, if this is the first time you're watching season 4 and you're listening, it's not a very linear season. They go through our main heroes, Nightwing, Aqualad / Aquaman, Megan, Superboy, Zatanna, Rocket, and they each get 4 episodes as their own arc. And you're with that same character for 4 episodes. Sometimes there's a spillover. Superboy and Megan have their own 4 together because they're in a relationship. But overall, like, it's not, hey, we're starting at this time and then we're ending this like a year later. It's like you're seeing 4 episodes and then you see another 4 episodes that takes place around the same time as the previous 4 episodes. But everyone's kind of like in a different location. So it kind of seems a little convoluted at times. It's also interesting that you mentioned, oh yeah, once they bring Lor-Zod in, everything kind of starts to click. And yet I remember you saying my favorite arc so far is Artemis's, and she has like nothing to do with Lor-Zod at all during her arc.
Because one, it's clear I lean very much to the Bat family stuff of things.
That's fair.
So, and when Connor, we get a wedding. That big thing, wedding at the end, McGann and Connor get married, which is awesome. When Connor gets out of the limo and his hair is cut short, I thought that was Jason. Because,
Oh,
like
snap.
because he was like, oh, you look good for a dead guy. And I was like, what? It took me a second to like, snap back. Yeah, but the Artemis thing, the reason I had liked that story for so much because it was so contained and it didn't need the other pieces to make much sense. But now that we're at the end, a lot of those things, like even some of the things that were going on Mars, the Zatanna story, sort of like what they set up with Mary Marvel, just all those things kind of like, again, I'm excited to rewatch it and see how they connect. And with Young Justice, it's interesting because it kind of, if you think about it, it's one of the longest running DC. It almost feels like a long run of comic books where they've been setting up stories for years and years and years, just because, we've gotten to see these characters grow and be through different things. And it does feel very much like reading a comic book when certain people die or they go in a certain direction with certain characters, feel so emotionally invested. And credit to the team overall in really building that and taking like big swings, because for me as a fan, it was hard to kind of like watch the way they structured this season, because I was like, oh my God, like this is the first season where the team is kind of here, but we're not seeing them together. And then, we get that last arc where they're all together and it feels so good. It feels like Young Justice again. And you're like, I'm glad you guys did this.
Yeah, I actually was going to bring that up. So after season 4, I started watching just bits and pieces of some of the other seasons. I noticed a couple of things and I was like, all right, let's see what Chris thinks. So season 1 and season 4, the theme songs are longer and we have the most focused on the original team in season 1 and season 4. In season 2 and 3, the theme song is shorter and we focus more on these newer developing team members. So in season 5, well, actually, in season 4, we didn't really see a lot of the external team. And like when I say external, I mean Tim Drake, Arsenal,
Jaime, Static, Virgil.
Yeah, we get them bits and pieces here and there, but really they're kind of just there to be like, we need to tell some stuff about the other characters.
You know what's crazy? This season has so little Batman.
It does. Oh my gosh.
So little Batman.
Only in the ending scene.
So little Batman. It's crazy. We do get a lot of Superman, which I like, the most Superman we've gotten really in the series. You've seen him kind of touch base with Connor and stuff, but it was really cool to see him touch. And then I think we're going to see more of him. Obviously, Darkseid's really tied to him. And then in this continuity in Earth 16, he hasn't met his cousin, Kara, is on Apocalypse.
Right. Yeah.
Was in the Phantom Zone. That's the big tease at the end. So hopefully with Connor in a good spot and Superman, we'll see if Jonathan joins the team. He seems like he's getting to that age. And then also like, we're talking about season 4, but I really hope they get renewed for season 5.
They've got Damian. I know they've got like one of your favorites. Well, I know you like all the Robins, but we've been teased Damian a lot in season 3, and he's in season 4 as like a toddler. So
yeah,
we need to get, hopefully, like, this is more of Superman's kind of season for sure. Maybe the next season.
Batman wasn't in it because he just found out he's a father and he's just like, in his own feelings about that.
Yeah, well, and also in season 3, Superman was like hardly in it at all because they do that like anti-light group thing in season 3, and Batman's like they had like Batman Inc. and Batman's like all over the place in that. So
yeah, he had like the Batman Inc. type, like, and also that season's The Outsiders, so that is like a big thing. We have obviously Black Lightning is a big part of that team in the comics, so that's why he has a prominent role. Like, again, it's kudos to the team, because sometimes you're watching, you're like, hey, like, this doesn't make much sense to me and stuff. And then you tie it back to the comics and then you tie it back to the story as a whole. You're like, oh, wow, they've really crafted this thing where it has like a lore in itself. It's created its own universe where, yes, these characters do embody why they're special in the comics, but they're also their own versions of that where you can enjoy them. You get to see their lives. You get to see them experience death. So it's going to be interesting where they take it, because all these characters are fully realized in their own way. And it'll be interesting to see if this next season, if they do get a chance to tell that story, if it's going to focus on this team, maybe some others. Like, I do feel at this point, the team is no longer Young Justice. They're the Justice League.
They're like 26, 27, I feel like, in this arc, this season.
They have kids, they have, depression, all that stuff. What's good is we're next week. By the time this episode releases, it'll probably be out on the DC Infinite app, but you have Young Justice Targets, which is another kind of in continuity comic book that tells a little bit more about the story. So if season 5 doesn't get renewed, I'd love to see it continue as a comic book.
It has to get renewed. Okay, I say it has to get renewed, but like I'm going to be putting it on HBO Max on a loop when I'm like at work or something, so I can make sure it does get renewed, because there's a lot of things I want in season 5. But the main thing I just want Wally West to come back in some sort of way. I mean, I don't have this Flash tattoo for nothing, bro.
Yeah. I respect it though. It when Barry died in the comics, that was like a significant thing because they kept him dead for so long.
Yeah.
And as much as I want Wally back, I do feel like his sacrifice means a lot more, being that they've waited so long to even really touch that subject. Obviously, he's come back in hallucinations and little flashbacks here and there, but there hasn't been like a Connor in the Phantom Zone type effort to be like, oh my God, he's alive, we got to go get him.
Yeah,
it's been like the whole team has accepted and not moved on, because the weight of that means so much, but also the other characters that have died in the show. It's been interesting. And the other thing is like, a character like Jason, they've teased for the last 2 seasons, what he's been on the island with the Al Ghuls, and they haven't really touched it. They've talked about what like his death felt like and stuff, but it'll be great to see him come into the fold some way. I would love another Bat family arc in season 5 if they were to do it. That's what I really want. We've talked about it a few times. I'm excited to see if they bring in Jonathan and Damian. That'd be cool to see the Super Sons. Jason to finally unmask himself and take on the Red Hood mantle, all those things. And I want to see this team step up into the league. Obviously, Calderon is in the league. He's Aquaman, but the rest of the team,
Well, Rocket's in the league. Zatanna's in the league. It's really just Miss Martian and Superboy and Nightwing, which that was the case in season 2. They didn't join the league, and maybe they will, or maybe they're just like kind of being like independent. Like Superboy's a part of the Outsiders, and they kind of hinted at his death in the end of season 4. And then there's also that one thing at the very end where they're like, there's a 0.86% chance that the timeline didn't get restored. So maybe the death that they predict doesn't actually happen. But overall, like going back to like the secondary team, I think this next season, we're really going to focus in on them a little bit more as the characters that are going to develop. And we're going to start to see Nightwing and Superboy and that lot kind of be the mentors that Batman and Superman and like Black Canary were to them in season 1, and have them really kind of take on that mantle. And it'll be great to see Tim Drake and Spoiler and pretty much all the Batman Inc. and hopefully Virgil and Blue Beetle, all those guys kind of get to be their own heroes and have like their at least just one episode or something where they get to be like, yeah, these guys were the most badass in these episodes or something.
In the end credits of one of the episodes of like one of the few times we got Batman was, him talking about new members, new possible recruits to the league. That'd be cool. Like we haven't gotten any Jason Blood, Etrigan. Those episodes are always fun when they dip into the magic. It's going to go in interesting places. And, we've jumped around a little bit, but, that's really because of how excited and how satisfied we were with the finale. But, speaking of the structure of the episode, like what I loved was like, I was so pissed when I saw Laura Zod jump into the time sphere. I'm like, not again. He has to die. And then it seemed weird. I was like, oh my God. And then he goes to that moment. When I saw him get to that spot where he's like, oh, I'm going to kill Connor when I had the chance, I was like, yes, I know he's gonna die. There's
Yeah.
something too perfect about this. And then, you see him eject from it, and then the sphere
Boom.
closes, and then Metron's plan comes together, and then you find out, hey, the ashes that were in that. And like I had forgotten about that. I was like, because maybe I thought of it as not too big of a detail. I was like, hey, maybe, yeah, there isn't a body because, he's to the Phantom Zone or whatever happened.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my God, yes, Lord Zod's been dead since the beginning. It's like, so this guy who's been super annoying, but like Young Justice always does, it's not as what it seems, because we see, hey, actually, he's being born again in this
Yeah.
timeline, and he's going to be raised differently and maybe even possibly stronger than he
Maybe.
was in that timeline. That's going to be crazy. And we obviously have Vandal Savage and Darkseid, who are kind of like, they have like this weird like rivalry in the show. We have Savage, he has his Kryptonians, he has his trophies and all that, and you're like, I wonder what he's going to do with these guys. And then you have Darkseid, who has his Furies, his new Furies. We get to see Big Barda. And going back to like what I'm excited about, I have to see Mr. Miracle next season.
I was so excited for that. And like I knew that was probably going to happen when I saw those leaks. I held my tongue to make sure you watched it. So I could be like, this is what I want.
If you spoiled that, the podcast would be over. But
well, I mean, I do want to see, of course, Mr. Miracle. That's definitely like the top 3 things for this next season. I gotta say top 4 now because I thought of another one. Mr. Miracle. Let's get some more Lantern kind of lore. We got the red and blue lanterns in this season, and that was a great tie-in to the previous animated Green Lantern series. So
that's coming in some way. Those last 2 planets that were teased, you're like, oh, like I know that name.
It's big in the Green Lantern comics, and so I hope that's a cool tie-in. And then obviously we want some Wally West, but I really, of course, want to get some Red Hood, and I think it'd be interesting to kind of maybe tell some of these stories. If we keep with the same 4 arc kind of thing in the next season, maybe the first episode is told from like the villain standpoint and you kind of understand their story. And then the next 3 episodes, you bring the hero in and there's a confrontation and you get their standpoint and whatnot. But I don't know. This was a unique season for how they told it. So it doesn't really matter how they tell it.
There's so much open. We still have like a lot of things that are set up. The crazy thing about it is I feel that there's so many things set up in terms of like good guys kind of being bad. You have Mary Marvel, you have Supergirl, you have Jason. Yeah. Obviously Damian, he hasn't met his father yet, not that we know of, so he's going to be a little bit of a brat.
You've got Miss Martian's brother. I mean, we know he's a villain.
He's a villain. So I think that's kind of crazy. I was like, to be honest, I was like, as much as I hated Lord Zod, I was like, you guys could kind of like kill Miss Martian's brother, please. Thank you. I was like, like I feel like him being on Darkseid, he didn't really get punished.
I mean, he kept his end of the deal according to the end of the season. And like you said, the planet he ends up on, it is a big part of the Green Lantern New 52 run. So, it's got some promising
Hopefully
things.
Hopefully a Green Lantern just shoots him through the heart. Or, we get John Stewart snapping his neck or something. Something, really, satisfying, like the way Lord Zod died, where he just the skin just ripped off his face. But also Breon, Geoforce, we see that like he's still being, and I thought they were going to continue that thread, but there's so many stories they can continue on that season 5, we see those threads, but they could go in so many different directions that can all be satisfying. And I'm excited for them to take me in a different direction too, like they did this season, where they go somewhere where I was like, I don't know where we're going, and then by the end of it I'm like, you guys are amazing.
Yeah, and this will be the last thing that I just thought of. He sent me a tweet the other day that says, into season 2, Darkseid gets teased as the big bad. Into season 4, Darkseid gets teased as the big bad. But I realized in this season, we don't really talk about the Light's plan. Like season 2, season 3, and season 1, it's really all about what the Light has planned. And in this season, we mostly see the Light on the side of the heroes. The Light trying to do a couple of things to keep destruction from happening in some ways. In some ways.
Yeah. No, but I think it's just the Light. It's kind of like what the league went through last season where they found out like, hey, the way we operate clearly does not work. So that's why, Batman, made the outsiders and stuff like that. I think they found like, hey, our egos are too big and it gives the heroes a much more easier opportunity to defeat us if we're a group. So if we just worry about ourselves, I worry about what I got going on here. You worry about what you got going on in Apocalypse. Like, yes, we could team up when, our interests align, but the Light thing, it doesn't work. It just gives the heroes one big target to go at. So it's best we operate on very much different fronts. And you worry about you, I worry about me. When our interests align, we'll do a little trade. I'll help you out, you help me out. But I think the Light has broken up.
Yeah, I kind of got a little bit of that vibe, but we do see a lot of Vandal Savage in this season. But I still feel more so that like Darkseid was the one that was the more threatening, or like he seemed more like the person with the plan throughout the season when we look at villains and arcs. So maybe this next season.
And he never physically got involved. He's like everything that he's been involved in, he's had surrogates, his people like Granny Goodness and different people involved, but he's never been physically anywhere, like he's like communicated with certain people. But I think that's why he's such a big threat, because it's like, well, if they have a problem, dealing with his surrogates, what happens when he finally steps on the battlefield?
Yeah, I think this next season we'll see hopefully a little bit more of Darkseid getting his hands dirty, but I also would like to see a little bit of more of like what the Light kind of wants to kind of do. Because like I honestly don't ever remember seeing Lex Luthor in this past season. It's really just Vandal Savage and
yeah, I think and it's just true Young Justice form where they try, those big villains they reserve for a certain thing. Like even Joker, like, we only got really in that flashback at the UN where we find out where
he's in season 1.
No, he's in this season.
Yeah, but he's also in season 1 when they fight the plant monsters.
Yeah, well, when they fight the plant monster in Justice League.
Yeah.
No, but what I mean is like it just shows you that those type of villains, Lex Luthor, Joker, Darkseid, those like kind of series defining villains that we all come to expect and stuff, they use sparingly and only when they really need it for the story, and I think they don't want to use Darkseid because the reality is when you use Darkseid, where do you go from there?
Yeah, and that's probably why they've like teased him as like the big bad for so long. And once he actually gets his hands dirty, then it's got to be something completely different or something that's like, this is a lot bigger threat than what we realized before. And then like the next season would explore that next threat a little bit more. But man, the next season, I am hoping, I am praying, I am streaming Young Justice 24/7, especially season 4 to make sure we get a season 5. But I want that season 5.
Yeah, please watch the show. It's something we love. We're really passionate about, on the day of the season finale, save Young Justice, renew Young Justice. They were trending on Twitter. And it's always been that type of show where, it isn't an like automatic renewal. We've always had to fight for more and prove it through watching the show and letting the powers that be know that we want more. So, if you're a fan, the only way you can get more of it is watching it and sharing that with all your friends and on social media. We're doing our part. We're making a podcast about it. And also check out the Young Justice Targets comic book that's coming out. It's going to be written by Greg Weisman, art by Chris Jones. So if you're a fan, that'll definitely wet your beak a little when it comes to the Young Justice content.
Yeah. And if you like listen to podcasts about comic book superheroes, Marvel, DC, maybe a little bit more DC than Marvel, though, if you know us. Keep subscribing, keep listening. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We've recently launched our YouTube and we'll be getting our catalog on YouTube shortly. And you can engage with us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Hit us up. Let us know what you liked about Young Justice Season 4 and what you want for Season 5. And until next time, bada boom.
Bada boom.